Dude, this is episode 22.
Nice. Doesn't seem like a lot. Sometimes it seems like a lot, and sometimes it doesn't, because 22 is not a very big number.
22 episodes.
But, like, it's not zero.
I think I saw...
I'm so stupid.
When I was...
What the heck
well,
did I
you
just
said
say?
it, not me. I didn't say anything.
My thoughts make a lot more sense to me.
Only you. When I was researching how to start the podcast, one of the guys was saying that like some 98%, 99% of podcasts don't go past 20 episodes.
So we're in the 2%.
So we're doing good. This is also our last episode.
Also, this will be the last one.
This is the final straw.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, folks, we are here, episode 22. This is going to be a recap of episodes 12 through 21. We kind of did that for the first, like when we did 1 through 10 or whatever it was, which was nice. People kind of like that, just to get them up to speed.
Yeah, we got some feedback on that. Apparently it serves as a good, ironically, preview for if you haven't listened to episodes 11 through 20, but would like to know which ones interest you. Forget that and listen to all of them because we need the viewership.
Yeah, maybe we should stop doing this because people are like, yeah, I've watched all of them and only watched the recap.
But as a podcast listener myself, I do get like, I don't listen to all of the podcasts of my favorite podcasts either. So it does make sense. So yeah, the recap apparently serves as a good preview for what people and topics might interest you. So if you listen to this recap, we definitely can't hit on all of the interesting things in each episode, but we can highlight a few, and then it kind of gives you an idea of, that one sounded interesting, so you can go back and listen to ones that you haven't listened to yet. Or
that's a good thought.
Kind of helps.
That's a good thought.
But still listen to all of them.
Every minute. Like, subscribe, comment. No,
terrible advertising.
It's funny. It is a lot of material to be listening to every week even, and some of them get a little longer, but it's all good stuff. I mean, if you have time, if you have a job where you can listen and do it at the same time, or your car trips or whatever, and it's just some wisdom-packed episodes, especially in this stretch. So why don't we just jump right into it? Sound good?
Sick.
Might
be a 3-year-old walking down the stairs.
Oh, boy. We are under attack.
Those are good sounds.
All right. Yeah, so we'll just go right for it. Episode 12 was Patrick Harney. For anybody who doesn't know Patrick Harney, he's a missionary pilot in Africa.
Also the coolest guy ever.
Yeah, that was really cool. So we got to go up in the his personal airplane.
That was so much fun.
Like the day before the episode. So that's something fun to talk about.
Yeah, we got to fly over a little bit, like a little bit of Lewis County. Like,
yep.
Kind of like took off in not quite northern Lewis County, but northern to us, and then like flew to. Where did you go? Where did he take you?
No, we went like over my house area.
Yeah, so we did the same thing. Yep. So that was really cool. I mean, it was like nerve wracking because like the airplane weighs as much as a paper airplane.
Yeah.
And it's like all open. Like the whole thing was like it feels like you're. Yeah, like it's not like a commercial airplane where it's all enclosed and it's like metal and maybe those aren't metal either. I don't know. But like, yeah, had me questioning everything. I had no idea. Like that thing was made from like a bird. Like it was a skeleton, and then it had like I don't remember what the fabric was, but wrapped around this skeleton, and Pat like pulled it out of the hangar himself.
Yep.
Like weighs 100 pounds more than my motorcycle, which blows my mind.
Yeah, that's insane.
What do you say, like 700 something?
700 pounds.
Yeah.
Somewhere, I don't remember. The
Insane.
specs are in the episode.
That was cool. And yeah, he when you guys came in for the landing, he did some kind of like cool aerial thing, and it was just awesome. Like,
I was in the back with like a bark bag.
puking in the back.
Like, this is so fun.
Yeah, he I don't even know what you would call that, but he did like a quarter barrel roll to the left and then to the right, and like went back and forth, and it was pretty sick.
Yeah, it was really cool to get some perspective on the area. Growing up in this space, being used to what everything looks like, and then being up in the air and everything looks different.
Yeah, it was only a few days. Was it a few days at that point? Maybe a few weeks after the July flooding. And so that was interesting. Like everything was wet. I noticed a lot of wet stuff where we flew over my house and like everything was, the fields were all still full of huge puddles. And the creek looked a little worse for wear, but
I think it was cool to see the Black River snake like it does. I didn't know that. Yeah. Because there's tree lines and stuff that would hide it, but really it snakes real hard. Yeah. Real quick. So
yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. But no, Patrick has been a missionary pilot in Africa for Samaritan's Purse for 10 years. I think he said 10 years. Wow. Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. But a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that people knew about was some of the projects that they work on and what he does. So he mentioned the cataract project. Mm-hmm. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, 500 a day or a week, 500 a week. I think he said.
I think so, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, compared to, what did he say, 100 of the cleft lip? Yeah, people, like, I feel like everybody knows about the cleft lip because, like, they put it in commercials and stuff. You grow up seeing, like, the fundraiser or the charities for cleft lip surgeries in Africa. But, like, I had never heard of the eye surgeries. And he brought up the fact that those are, because they can do them in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Was that what it was?
It's a lot faster.
So they crank them out.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Like, I can understand, like, tying a muscle together.
Right.
Putting a new lens in somebody's eye, that's just, like, it's kind of crazy.
Mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. It's insane. And then, you're there the day after the surgery, they take the patch off, and this person can see again. Right there.
So are these people who were able to see, then lost vision, and now they can see again?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yep. But maybe have never seen their grandkids. You know?
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they'll do a lot of them. With the cleft lip, we'll usually do, like, 100 in a week. The cataract surgeries only take like 5 minutes. So they'll do like 500 in a week.
Incredible.
Yeah, 500 people who couldn't see last week.
You can impact like that.
It's neat. Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of purpose in that.
Yeah, work. Exactly.
For me, that was crazy. It's like the little work that matters, you know? Like, yeah, when you think about missionary work in other countries, I don't really know, like, how you think about it, but for me, it's like this macro operation. And no, like, when Pat comes in and talks about their day-to-day, it's like it's the little everyday work of each individual person to affect small changes over a long period of time. And I think that was pretty eye-opening for me. There's a large organization behind it, but yeah, like those eye surgeries, like helping one individual person at a time over a long period of time, hoping that big change happens. And I think that what's interesting about that is that God gifts people with an ability to see the bigger picture. And that's huge. Like putting people in those positions that are gifted to do that everyday little work I can see it being discouraging sometimes. It's like,
sure,
you feel like such a small fish in a big pond when you're facing such gigantic problems like what these places have. But yeah, it just must be that God handpicks gifted people that's their calling, is to get in the field, get their hands dirty, do the little things that matter over a long period of time. It takes a special kind of gifted person.
Yeah, and we'll insert a lot of these clips. That way people can also kind of be connected to those episodes, and they'll be linked in the description below also. But, no, to your point, I really like the fact that he said that all of the medical experts would be flying in from all over the world, and they'd kind of set up base, and then these missionary pilots would go get the patients, take them there. They receive the surgery. The next day they pick them up and take them home. Life-changing stuff. Life-changing.
It's a lot of work for individual people that matter.
In the U.S., we think cataracts, okay, no big deal. That's an easy fix, and, you schedule an appointment and you can go get it taken care of Monday or whatever before it progresses. Well, cataract progresses so quickly that you completely lose your vision. And he said that for some of those people who are getting their vision back, it's been a decade since they've seen. So maybe they knew their kids, but not their grandkids. So It's life-changing work. And cleft lip, same thing. And he talked about the cultural response to people who have cleft lip, that the culture kind of points them out as cursed and
ostracize them,
and we'll just cast them out to the bush even. So
if the baby's born with a cleft lip, a lot of times the baby and then even the mom and the family are ostracized. They'll say the baby has a demon or it's cursed. Curses and that kind of thing are very prevalent in that culture. And so there's really horrible stories. I mean, oftentimes the baby's just left out in the bush, to die. Horrible stuff. And so Samaritan's Purse has this project where this team, medical team, surgeons and OR folks will fly in from all over the world into Juba, which is the capital where the main base is, and set up shop, set up an OR, and we'll fly out, pick up a whole bunch of folks with cleft lip, bring them back. One day they do all the pre-op stuff. The next day they get surgery. Day after that we take them home.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I feel like just the amount of effort put into the individual person is like, it's mind blowing. It's a good example of God's love for us as individuals. I don't know. It's easy to get discouraged when you look at the modern world and see all the garbage that we see here in America. But no, there's still good works out there, and there's a lot to be encouraged about. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's challenging.
It's not all bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
examples of God's love in this stuff, and it's easy to forget, but just listen to Pat's episode if you need a reminder that it's not all bad out there.
Yeah,
it's some pretty encouraging stuff. The generator flying the generators.
Yeah,
that was another one. It's I don't know that I've ever thought what do missionary pilots do. I've never what are they hauling? What are they doing? I read a book where they talked about they would fly food in Africa. They would have big bags of rice dropping off food to people, and
airdrops.
Yeah, so I guess maybe
on Call of Duty.
Friendly plane inbound. That's what I would probably default to. But he mentioned that there was a 1,000-pound something generator that they flew one time, and I was like, man, that's basic stuff. That their job is just to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Just the basic real world work. This
Bags
place
of
needs
concrete.
A generator. Throw it in the plane and we'll fly it down. It's not that. It's not that
flashy.
No,
right.
It's they just need help, and here's an airplane, and get their basic needs taken care of. It's amazing though.
I think, you'd think that the importance of a missionary pilot in Africa would be look at they're flying in and they're rescuing people out of, areas that are problematic or whatever, however you want to say it. But really, he said that a lot of times he goes, it's easy for the cleft lip and cataract projects to bring so much purpose and meaning because you're seeing the faces.
Right.
And he said a lot of times when he's just concrete back and forth that's helping build schools and churches and whatever or villages, he goes, you don't really see the end product, so it's easy to just kind of get mundane into the everyday thing, but it's meaningful work. That generator needed to be somewhere to help people. And so he talked about praying over the cargo sometimes, and when he just kind of felt like the Lord put it on his heart. And cool stuff. Really cool stuff.
There's
I think he was being a little bit humble too. I think that he does do a lot of missions like we're talking about that are pretty cool. He did actually reference, going down to, I don't know if it was Mozambique or something. He's flown around to different disaster areas and helped out during catastrophes and stuff like that. So
super super cool. He's a good individual. There's it's obvious that he's right where he's supposed to be. That was super cool. There's a holiness to that work that, especially in that concrete analogy, they're just finding the value in that kind of that hard, dirty work and getting done what needs to be done, but seeing it's part of the bigger picture and finding purpose in that. Yeah, and the fact that it's done in the name of the Lord too, being that it's Samaritan's Purse. I don't know, it's really cool. It's pretty cool.
Then he talked a little bit about his like specialty training. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that we actually got to pull up a bunch of stuff on the on the screen here, and kind of he walked us through a lot of the different things that they did. And we'll clip that too, so people can watch that. But wild, like the aileron roll. What did he call that? He's just like flipping through the space, 10,000 feet up in the air.
Yeah. It's a whole other level, like a whole other dimension of flying an airplane to fly it upside down.
It must be so disorienting too. Like, but that's the whole point of this training is so that when you're involuntarily put through that stress, you know how to react.
Yep.
That's why I cold plunge. 4750. Okay.
It's just an aileron roll.
A what?
An aileron roll, so just rolling.
Oh, okay.
Rolling this way, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Insane. But the better part was just it's for preparedness, how to be prepared for any, existential situation that you might have to deal with. That really hit home for me, and I think a lot of people too. It's like chair flying. He mentioned about how like fighter pilots or like air show pilots will be like sitting there and they're just like watching. They're kind of going through every turn in their head,
imagining a real life scenario and just practicing. Yeah. Have you seen the videos that are popping up like of fighter pilots like running through their routines, sitting in a chair?
Yeah.
And like they're just like in their own world. Like they look ridiculous, but like kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're like,
if you're a fighter pilot,
they're making
anything's
like
cool.
hand movements and stuff. And
Yeah.
No, it's interesting.
Yep. Or you see these
flying.
you see these aerobatic pilots. They'll be walking out on the ramp before their routine, and they're just eyes closed, and they're just walking through everything they're gonna do. Yep.
Yeah, chair flying. That's cool.
But then it comes back when you need it. It's there. But if you don't do that, and you need it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Preparedness is key. And training, relying on your training. Oh my word. I can't tell you how many times where it's like, oh, well, why did you do that? Because that's what I was trained to do.
Yeah.
It just came back to me in that moment because I needed it. Yep.
That happens a lot in chess too. Have you ever seen that?
Really?
Yeah.
Where they're sitting there and they're kind of like.
Yep, they can, like, it happens a few different ways. Like
Magnets do that?
Yeah, like all those top guys, they can, whether, sometimes it'll be like an exhibition where they have 9 chessboards set up and they play 9 different people.
At the same time?
Same time. Or, but like, then they'll blindfold them. They'll blindfold the one player. And so he's playing 9 different people, but having to memorize each board. And there's years and years of practice and book work that allows them to do that. So there's like wild. An analogy behind that too. But like, even if they're just playing in like a tournament, like where it's, grandmaster versus grandmaster, and they're both on the same skill level, like the whole, like the average professional chess player can like predict 7 moves ahead based on the book move that they should be making and whatever. Yeah. Well, like, what are they doing? They're like looking up in the air, like they're kind of goofballs. Like they're looking up in the air and like, they're in their head. They're doing that pilot thing. They're seeing like, what's going to happen 9 moves from now? Well, what about this scenario? What about this? And then they can do that like in 10 different variations of each move too. And so it's just years and years of prep behind that though, that allows them to do that. And yeah, the chair flying is kind of funny. Like if you've ever seen it, they look goofy, but like
serious purpose behind that.
And it's like, they're like the coolest people ever. So
yeah, fighter pilots.
Can't make fun of them. Yeah, can't
or
really make fun of them.
Chess grandmasters, both.
No, nerds. Yeah. Anyway, the chair flying thing. Yeah, I guess that's a real thing.
Yeah, and well, applicable too to life in a lot of ways. No matter what you're doing, you should be constantly thinking about, situations that might arise and how you're going to deal with them and how you're going to interact, because you can see the people who do that and how they respond to a circumstance that comes up that most people would be shook by.
Yeah.
You mentally prepare ahead of time. I've thought about this before, and this is what I thought would be a good idea. And based on the circumstances around me, this is what I'm going to do. And leaders need to be that way. Leaders in business, leaders in the home, husbands, fathers, mothers, wives.
Yeah, you can't assume that just because you do a certain thing that will come to you. Like, not all pilots are created equal. Like, could every pilot have landed that plane in the Hudson like Sully could have? No. Like, just so happened that there was a guy who was probably took his profession a little more seriously, took his preparation a little more seriously, that was put in that position and was able to do it. But like, you can't just assume that because I'm doing this thing, it will all come to me without me putting in the time, putting in the effort, putting in the hard work. That's super important. Like, just because there is no mountaintop, that doesn't happen just because you do something. Like, you have to, you're always working and you're always preparing. Stay ahead.
I especially for like special response professions, if you're in something that needs critical action, I think that has to be a part of what you do. If you're a firefighter, you better be thinking about every single scenario when you're in a burning building. What happens if my air tank runs out? What happens if, a person is caught in this corner, or what the outflow is for air over here? I would imagine that that's done all the time. I know for me in policing it was, and a lot of times I needed it and it came through. But I would think every possible scenario while I'm on my way to a call, what information do I have? But then also just like whatever information or whatever scenario, with my family or it's such a good practice. Yeah. We should try to do that.
Yeah. It's a responsibility when you're in that kind of position too. Like, emergency responders, what Pat does, like it's a responsibility to take that seriously. Yeah. Really is what you should be doing. So,
or if you're at the supermarket and you're a father and you're with your kids and something happens.
Yeah. Got to know how it's going to go down.
Yep. Be alert, be prepared. He also talked about prioritizing your marriage first. That was a big thing. So we'll show that clip.
Relationship with Whitney first, and then the kids after that, teaching them.
That was interesting what you just said. You said the relationship with Whitney first, and the kids come after.
Yeah. It's easy to get that screwed up.
I was gonna say, is that tough sometimes?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Only recently I've heard somebody say that out loud, and it was like, yes, that's right.
Yep.
Everybody loves their kids so much. It's easy, and we've had this discussion before. It's easy to neglect your marriage, and then
you see the divorce rate when the kids get out of the house.
Right.
Huge spike.
Yes, because you're living with a stranger.
Right. And it's funny. I mean, you get home from work when the kids are just like, Dad, and they're like running down the stairs, and it's easy just to be like, Dad, come look at this. Dad, come look at that, and just like a practical, intentional, like, nope, let me give Mommy a hug, see how she's doing, then we can go look at your flat bike tire or whatever it is.
Go play ball.
But it's hard. It's hard to keep that straight.
Yeah. And that happens every day. Like, that's an everyday challenge.
Yep.
Happened to me yesterday. I came home from work. Brielle was upstairs, but my daughter was downstairs and was the first person that I saw. And I remember thinking, like, well, I'm going to, like, she's here. I'm going to greet her. Like, I don't need to, like, stuff her aside and go, like, greet my wife first. But, like, I had the thought in my head, like, do I want to go upstairs and greet my wife? It's like, she's not just down here where I see her when I walk in. Like, in this today, I need to make the effort to go upstairs and greet her. It's silly, but, like, I thought that, like, it's important to, it's important. Like,
well, you say it's silly, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's not, but, like,
maybe I went a long ways with her.
Yeah, hopefully. Anyway, it's tough. Like, when your kids are, as soon as you open the door and you hear daddy, 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 like, all three of your kids yell daddy in succession. It's like, it's hard to not, like, match the energy and get down on their level and freak out, and then, like, greet them, and then you go to your wife and you peck them on the cheek and, like,
hey dear.
Yeah, no, that's not how. It can't be how it is. Like, and if you want your kids to value their marriage, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to set an example for your boys on how, or even, for your boys on how to treat their wife, or for your girls on how to, on what to look for in a good man, be very intentional about how you treat your spouse. There's a long-term investment in going up to your wife and giving them, putting in the effort and giving them that special greeting when you get home from work. And you think that you're doing more for your kids when you get home and freak out and you're so happy to see them, which do that after, because it's great. It's the best. But you're actually doing a lot more for them if you prioritize your wife in front of them.
Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna teach them on what to do and what to look for when they're in relationships and looking for marriage and all of that.
Yep.
It's a little thing, but it's a big thing.
It's huge. Episode 12, Pat Harney. Go check it out. Patrick Harney. Episode 13 was Tyson Roggie, which is my brother and your brother-in-law. Tyson has, I think, some specific, I would consider expertise in the area of parenting and shepherding your child's heart, which is so important. Yep. Fostering that relationship to where when your kids are older, that relationship is still there. They come to you for help, but also training your kids so that the heart behind parenting isn't just regimented
changing their
instruction.
behavior. Yeah, don't do that because this is better. Like,
yeah, or especially because
heart.
I said so.
Because I said so. Yep. Yep. Changing their heart, not their behavior.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing that he mentioned was value inside of boundaries. I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah.
That kids, if they don't have boundaries, then there's no perspective of what's important inside boundaries. So actually creating boundaries is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I'll let the clip obviously play for itself.
Parents let their kids run rampant, and kids need boundaries. One book we read talked about how boundaries, exemplify value for what's inside of those boundaries. And so when kids don't have any boundaries, they don't feel valued. It's an interesting concept because everything you hear is you can't say no to kids, you can't tell them what to do, you can only encourage them, blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, I think we need to be a lot more encouraging. So I definitely need to do that more, but also the kids need to hear no. Like they need to hear, no, that's not okay. And so when you place boundaries around them for that, it does let them know you care about them.
Yep. Yeah, kids are they're like blank slates. Like when they got nothing to go off of when they're born. They have nothing. Like they're like a black chalkboard with no writing on it. And like if we could change our perspective on their mistakes and see the mistakes as like, oh, that's an addition to the chalkboard. Now we treat that as a boundary and we say, hey, like this is a boundary. What you just did, I'm not upset about it. We're going to work on the heart, the motivation behind why you did that, and we're going to work on the heart, not just change the behavior. But if we can see kids as like not knowing a darn thing until and then we can maybe change the way that we see mistakes being made and see them as learning opportunities, and that chalkboard starts to fill up. And if we're successful at teaching them proper boundaries, then they have more to go off as they grow up. But yeah, the need for boundaries because of creating value for what's inside those boundaries is kind of a mind-bending thing, but like it kind of makes sense. I need to do a little more digging on that personally. I understand like when there is boundaries, you are the value for what is inside them is more, but I don't really quite understand like what inherently creates value in there. So I don't know, maybe I should talk to him a little more about that. But yeah, it is a good it's an interesting concept, but I think I need to up my parenting game there. One thing he talked about too was parenting changes you for the better.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of person I would be if I wasn't a parent, but I can guarantee you I wouldn't be a better person. Isn't that interesting? Like, I don't think I would be a better person now than if I didn't have kids than I am now. I can almost guarantee that. So yeah, it's like easy to say there's a net positive benefit or a net benefit to being a parent. Yeah, I don't know. I think kids do make you better just inherently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smooths off a lot of the edges.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he said that he goes, I think it's 50-50. Your parenting is about facilitating growth in them, but also what God's doing in fixing your own issues. Yeah. It's like if you have an issue with patience, you better believe that that's going to be worked on.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just my own.
If you're an intentional person, because if you're not,
exactly. Maybe it's just my own experience.
Your impatience will lead to
there's a lot
abuse
of abuse there's a lot of tough situations out there. So maybe that's not always true. I was going to say have kids, folks, but I'm sure there are other situations that maybe are a little different than mine, but I know personally for me, I'm definitely a better person for having, after having kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
With the boundaries things, just circling back to that, he also said that it's important for children to push boundaries than to let them push boundaries. So I think like creating a boundary shows value for what's inside the boundary, but also, they have to be able to become good decision makers, which is what he said is like the biggest part of what he's doing with his kids. Yeah. So letting them push boundaries, making their own decisions. Yeah. Well, as long as it's not catastrophic, but
right.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
kind of a hard concept.
That does make sense. Like how I can reconcile like the value being inside the boundary. There's value for things inside the boundaries if you place boundaries. Is maybe like if you don't have any boundaries, there is no satisfaction in breaking the rules, and so. Yeah, it's kind of like maybe a correlation to sin in general. Like, yeah, sin is pleasurable in the moment. Most sin is what we desire because it's that short-term pleasure. But we realize that when we live inside the boundaries of grace and mercy and forgiveness, and we accept the Lord as our Savior, and we go that way instead, like there's true joy in eternal life, and we have something more to aspire to. I can see that. Yeah, that makes a little more sense, I guess. I'm just trying to figure out what is a child's incentive to live inside the boundaries. Because like it's hard for a 5-year-old to
understand the value of what's inside a boundary.
I need to figure that out if I'm going to get my 7-year-old, my 5-year-old, my 3-year-old. But yeah, anyway.
No, I thought that was a good point. Interesting concept. But yeah, the heart behind how you correct matters a lot, which is interesting.
Here's what's going to happen if we continue to let you go on this path. And I really don't want to do that. I want to bring you back into, the safety net of how to function. And so that changes the whole perception. When it's the kid just standing there ready to get pounced, by dad, and here comes the barrage again, I'm going to get chewed out for whatever, to, no, my concern is not that you've offended me. My concern is that you continue on this path, and the what you're going to reap because of what you're sowing right now
is destruction.
Yeah, and, it doesn't mean you're going to die from this.
Right.
But you know what? It could mean that relationships are a lot more of a pain. Mm-hmm. And so here's something you need to figure out.
And then also, just before we wrap up this section, which we're almost running out of, we'll just reset. He talked about parenting as a battlefield and how when you're in it, you don't really see when you're in the battle, you don't see that you're winning the war. Really good quote. Mm-hmm. And he said a lot of times with the daily interactions, it feels like there's a lot of casualties.
Yep.
But to see the greater picture and realize that you are winning the war ultimately is important.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, because when you're in the middle of the battlefield, you don't always see, that you're winning the war, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. And so
when you send your kids out is kind of when you
it feels like there's a lot of casualties in just little interactions, and it's like, man, I feel like we're banging our heads against the wall with X, situation or whatever. But then you see them interact with other kids or other adults, or, Olivia has a huge heart. And so it really kind of brings it full circle. I heard somebody say one time, like, if you're too far removed from something, you don't have a good view of it. But also if you're too close to something, you don't have a good view of it either. And so it's nice to hear that.
I think a lot of parents probably need that encouragement, because as the kids get older, it gets harder and harder. And having the bigger picture, sticking to your guns, as long as they're the right ones. You need to remember that you're winning the war, even if you have bad days. Right. You have bad days, and they have bad days, but you stick to the script, and it's a bigger picture behind it all.
Yep. Yeah, so that was episode 13. We crammed that in there. You have to go listen to that. It's one of my favorites. Absolutely. I've listened to that one several times. There's so many
Tyson
good pieces of wisdom.
Tyson has a real heart for parenting and especially fatherhood. So if you need encouragement there,
check that out.
Recommend that.
It's episode 13 on parenting mostly. So we're just going to reset and we'll be right back, okay? All right, we are back. I just want to let people know that they should check out episode 13. If you're a parent, if you're a husband, check that out. It's going to change your life. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and he's been through it, and he's led a lot of seminars. So it's Tyson Roggie, episode 13. Okay, check that out. Moving on, a little different topic, and this is kind of the fun part about, I think, just the podcast that we're doing. It's going to be a wide range of topics, wide range of guests, and if it's something that piques your interest, then you can look at it. If not, there's another one coming out. So
yeah.
Episode 14 was Sam Benzing. He's a trainer, a health and fitness professional, and a coach.
With a refreshing perspective on fitness and expectations, and he's a trainer. And I feel like a lot of things you're going to see on these days on social media that come from fitness pages or fitness people that talk about fitness a lot, whether it's podcasts or influencers or whatever. A lot of it is not as personal or relatable, and Sam takes a really interesting approach to coaching his clients that I think is really smart, number one, but also correlates a lot to most things that you try to do with people where they're looking for some kind of breakthrough, not just fitness. And that is getting on their level where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And I would say that I would contend that most any counseling type thing, anytime someone's looking for advice, what is one thing that we all know people struggle with? Accepting help, right? Everyone's got problems. Everyone wants a solution to their problems, but not everybody who seeks help is willing to listen and stick to something. And I really thought that Sam's and fitness is a huge one. That's a huge one, right? Everyone wants help with, losing weight or gaining muscle or whatever. And I think that Sam's approach, he approaches it almost like I don't want to say a therapist, but
right.
He's not just do it and then lose his clients because nobody can stick with it, which is 99% of people trying to affect physical change in their body. He approaches it like a counselor. It's hey, I see where you're at. I know how hard this is. I'm going to get on your level and we're going to go at your pace. And that builds trust. And trust is something that you need with somebody if you're going to actually have a shot at affecting change in their life. And I thought that was really cool. So we had somebody on who's in the fitness world who had a refreshing perspective on the training industry. Not just your typical do the work and stay hard. He's approaches it almost like a therapist, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Building relationship, meeting people where they're at, taking it slow, going at people's pace, because that builds trust, and that's what people need if they're going to actually accomplish something. They need to trust you. And so I think that that's really cool. And he's he's perfect for that because he's a nice guy. It's his personality. I think he's doing great. I think it's amazing what he does. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. The psychological part of fitness or attaining goals in your weight loss journey or whatever it is equally as important as what you can do physically. Maybe more important for most people. And he gets that. He just understands that there's a nuanced way to kind of get through this and help people attain their goals. If you're not, he has so many good examples, but he's just as a trainer, be relatable, be fun to be around. He's be somebody that they want to spend time with because ultimately that's better for them.
Right.
It's better for their health, better for their mental health.
Yep.
It's better for their goals. It's better for the relationship. It ingrains consistency and discipline. And if you just come right out the gate hard at somebody who's not prepared for that mentally, you lose them.
Yeah.
They check out.
Right. And he takes it very seriously too. He's not just working at a commercial gym where they get assigned a client and then they see him once and never see him again. he takes it very seriously, which is huge.
Yeah, and he mentioned that you also have to get results. Like that's the whole point. It's not just like you're not just a buddy that they just get to go and walk around the gym with for a couple hours. Like you still got to get stuff done, but you got to understand the psyche of the person and how to get them where they want to be. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
It'll just be cool. I mean, like, I talk shop with my clients about my life, their life, everything, what's going on in the news stuff. Half of it's also a therapy session for some people. I have a client who she's consistently inconsistent. I'll put it that way. So, like, single mom, works 2 jobs. She sometimes has to work late at the job that she's at, so she might not come to her sessions, but we try and double up if we can sometimes. But she told me she had wicked gym anxiety, like, through the roof. She waited in the parking lot and never went into the gym, drove home, and tried doing a home workout with a muffler. Like a car muffler. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because she didn't want to go to the gym because she had such bad gym anxiety. Now she comes in the gym on her own every now and then. But she also told me, she goes, I love coming to the gym now. Hanging out with you, it's like a partway therapy session on top of actually working out and stuff.
Another thing he started talking about was habit stacking. So that's from the book Atomic Habit.
Okay.
By James Clear, I think it is. And how that really works with clients. Okay, we're going to start with a good habit for this week. I want you to eat an apple when you wake up. That's it. The next week, okay, we're going to have an apple and a protein shake, 30 grams of protein, 25 grams, whatever. You do those 2 things now for the next week. And then the further that you stack all of these good habits, then you can really kind of focus your whole mindset differently of this is just what I do now.
Habit stacking is one thing that I use on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Easy one. You're coming home from work and you pass the gym every day. Have your gym clothes in so then you don't have to pass the gym, go home, sit on the couch for 30 minutes, miss the gym, and then not want to go back.
Yeah, everybody can relate to that.
Everybody can.
The Mark Cuban, I sleep in my gym clothes idea.
Literally.
That way when I get up, I'm already ready to go to the gym.
Yeah. Another thing is literally just tying your shoes and walking out the door. You're not going to walk back inside.
Yeah.
You're going to go to the gym.
Yeah, that's a very refreshing perspective. I mean, yeah, you don't hear that very often. Usually what you hear is
change everything at once.
Exactly. Here's what you need to do. You need
Optimize
to
your
eat
life.
a pound of protein per pound of body weight. You need to go for a 30-minute walk every day, do 45 minutes of resistance training, and eat 2,000 calories a day. And when you stack all that together, you'll actually lose weight. Like, good luck getting most people to, do that all at once right from the beginning.
Discipline is not an overnight.
Nope. Yeah, it's not
attainable characteristic.
Yep.
No, it takes time to build up.
It's like a muscle you have to train.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
start small. Like, you don't. Yeah, exactly. If you wanna bench press more weight, you don't just throw 4 times what you can do in that moment and go for it. Like, you got to work up to it.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't just bench. Nobody can just sit on the bench and go 405. Like, you got to start at the bar. I don't know. Speaking for other people, not myself.
Yeah, other people.
Yeah.
The fact is every single person that you know can change their life in a better way today. And it doesn't mean that you do everything. You can't be like, I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow. And every single day from there on out, I'm just going to do things to be better and get this habit stacking in order. Start with something small and then apple every day.
People need realistic ideas of what change looks like, not the what Facebook tells you nowadays. I get up at 4 a.m. every morning and I do 2 hours of meditation and then I read a book for an hour and then
I go to the gym for 2 hours.
It's not real life. Yeah, you need a realistic perspective. And
a caveat would be that there are outliers certainly who can do that and maybe change their life overnight. But for the general
99%,
for everybody else, for all the rest of us, habit stacking. What else? He's trained some state record holders in powerlifting. Just a good guy to talk to.
Successful.
I think the biggest thing too was I think the biggest takeaway from that was being relatable, being understanding of people's goals and what they can handle, and what makes them tick the best. Because he talked about one client who who I guess nutrition was kind of like a hot button issue for them. He goes, so like we didn't talk about it for a while because he goes, so what do? I hammer down. He's coming in every week, or he's coming in 4 times a week. He's doing 30-minute workouts. He's going hard. He's doing them well. Then he's going home and his diet's not quite where it should be. Should I crack down on his diet so that now he doesn't want to come and be with me? And I broke his desire to continue. He's like, it's work done. It's positive direction. Okay, and then he stops going to gym altogether, and then it's a net negative.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, he may not be making as much progress in his workouts, but like, hello, it's still better to work out than to sit on the couch and play video games during that time, right? Yeah.
Don't break their spirit.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was episode 14. Really, really good.
Yeah, good guy to have like in our community. Anyway, yeah, like if I would say if you're looking for somebody to help you fitness-wise, like check him out. Works at Double Play Community Center.
I would love to have him back on and talk about like hot and cold therapy and some of the other stuff, intermittent fasting, all of the hot button issues we talked about. What was it? Functional fitness. He hates he hates that term. Yeah. It's just overused. Yeah. But no, really good episode. Fitness. Episode 14. You should check it out. We'll insert some clips in there too. You want to take us to the next one?
Episode 15 was Calder, Roggie, my brother-in-law, your brother.
Yes.
That was a good one. We talked like 50% softball, 50% hunting. The softball portion, I just listen. I don't have much to contribute there, but that was excellent. I love talking to Calder. He is very passionate about not just hunting, but like takes it very seriously preparation wise, and even a respect. Like he has a respect for what hunting is about, then you can just tell. Like, and he also has been a hunting mentor for me, and so I can attest that that's not just for the cameras. Like he is that way. Like he takes it very seriously, the conservation side of it, and even just respecting the wildlife and the nature, that came out, and it's very obvious. And if you know him in real life, it's very true. I don't know. We talked about a lot of cool stuff that I thought was pretty cool. He talked about the heart rate, about preparation and what happens to your heart rate when you see a big buck walk out, or even whatever. It doesn't even need to be a big buck, but there's a natural response that our bodies have to stress. And being able to control that stress is a parallel, not just in hunting, but it parallels to situations in life where how you respond to stress is very important. And I thought that was a very, very interesting perspective. I don't know. Like I don't know that I've ever experienced anything that gets your heart rate going, like seeing a deer walk out that you've been hoping would walk out for 2 hours of staring at the tree line, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, it's amazing how we all know, like, so the human body is not designed to operate under high stress for a long period of time. And a good example of that is any of you listening, hop on the treadmill and try to sprint for more than, I wouldn't even say 30 seconds, like 15 seconds for the average person. You'll find it's like darn near impossible, but none of us we don't really push ourselves that far very often, so not a lot of people realize that. Like, when was the last time you got on the treadmill and tried to sprint for more than 20 seconds? Most people never. But if you do that, you realize we can't. Like the human body can't really sprint for more than 30 seconds. Like we slow down. We have like a little bit of nitrous oxide in the tank, and it goes really quick. And what happens to your heart rate is it also comes right down right away. So you sprint for 30 seconds and your heart rate spikes, and then you stop because you have to, and your heart rate quickly drops. It doesn't stay up there. It drops pretty quick. Well, with hunting, Calder talked a bit about this. Like, I've never experienced, so we know what that feeling feels like. If you are going on, if you're exercising or whatever, and you stop exercising, you almost, you know your heart rate's going to come back down. You know you're going to catch your breath. It's a very familiar feeling. The first time that I saw a deer walk out 200 yards, my heart rate went through the roof, but I wasn't breathing heavy. And the first thing I noticed is that 2 minutes later, it hadn't stopped beating that hard. And I was like, this is an odd feeling. Like,
Like it should go down.
You're not. Yes, I knew like something in the back of my mind was like the fact that my heart is still beating this hard is not normal. Like this is weird. I need to get this under control. It doesn't feel right. I'm not going to be able to do anything if I can't get this under control. But it didn't feel like I had any control of it. It was weird. But like
adrenaline's a heck of a drug.
Like I'm sitting there like normal breathing. I feel calm, but my heart is like pounding at 160 beats a minute, and it didn't stop, and that felt very odd. And he talked about like, if you want to be successful, and sometimes, you know, a lot of it goes into like ethical too. If you can't prepare for that situation, you probably shouldn't be trying to kill an animal.
Yeah. That is what he said. He said, in understanding the seriousness of it, understanding that actually it's a very dangerous pursuit also, hunting.
Yeah. Taking it seriously and understanding like, you can't just go into it blind. You need to be able to, you need to understand like the stresses that are going to come with it, and then how to handle it so that you are prepared to do whatever the situation is that you're doing. And there's a lot of things in life that are like that. And I think Calder makes a great parallel.
Yeah.
From hunting.
And like he mentioned, he's like, if anybody thinks they're a tough guy, they can go out in the woods.
It's true.
In the woods at night.
Oh yeah.
When it's dark out.
It's true.
Hearing twigs snap next to you and not knowing what it is. Yeah, no
it's
thanks.
a little. Yeah, it's true. It's very
It's true. Yep. Nature can humble you pretty quick sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
He let's see what else. He talked a little bit about hunting and selective movement. That was interesting. You're playing red light, green light with the deer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's how they do it. People stalk deer on the ground into like 10, 12 yards, because, you know, they'll take their shoes off and they'll be in their socks so that it's quieter, and they'll wait for that deer to look one direction, and then they'll take a step, and then the deer maybe will look the other direction, and they wait, and then the deer will look back that direction that they can get away with some movement, and you take one more step.
Yeah, it's not as simple. So everybody talks about, oh yeah, just be as still as possible. But like sitting out with you a couple times last year and hearing you talk about it, I've learned way more than just hearing people talk about sitting still.
Yeah, I would say more than sitting still is selective movement, because once you see the deer, it's one thing. I'm more still before I see the deer than I am when I see the deer.
See, okay, I never thought about that, but I think that I'd be similar. Like I wouldn't want to just sit in a tree and just be like still the whole time. And I loved the way he's like, yeah, I have like rapid movements. He goes, but it's, if I see something and it looks away from me, then I'll make a move. Like, interesting.
Yeah, like when to draw your bow.
Yeah, when to draw, how to hold. It's a complete art.
Yep.
If you do it correctly.
And the only way to really master that is to prepare. Like, you have to understand how the animal moves and what it's doing. Like, did he talk about like when they move their ears? So like if you're looking at a deer and it's chewing some grass or it's looking this way, maybe Kurt talked about this, but like its ear is facing you. If you don't understand that means the deer knows you're there because you don't know deer and you haven't studied deer, then you're not prepared. And that would directly correlates to your selective movement. So like, for example, if the deer's gnawing on some grass and its head down, but its right ear is like flicked towards you and you're like, oh, now's a good time to draw my bow. But like it knows you're there, but you didn't know that because you weren't prepared. You didn't you have to, it's a study. Yeah, it's a study thing.
Yeah,
you know, you think cool. You're going into an unknown environment that you think you understand, but you don't, and you have to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a lot. And he said, he was talking about, they call it hunters that stalk and how they can get so close.
That. Yeah.
Selective movement.
That's
what he said.
Yeah.
He said like, they know when to take a step. They know when to move. And like, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a skill, and he was really good to talk to about that. But he also said, like, prepare to lose. Like, get your mindset right that you're not going to win every time. Like, get your mindset right that you're probably going to fail 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
and that's okay. It's part of learning.
Yeah, if you can find joy in the process, that helps a lot. But yeah, get ready to fail.
Yeah,
it's a small percentage activity, small percentage success activity.
Yeah, right.
But maybe if you change your perspective and look at it like, you know, enjoying the process is a success in itself. And but that's a lot of things in life. That is a lot of things in life.
Yeah, he left us some nuggets too about, you know, living in the moment, you know, close encounters with death. You got to check out that episode. It's episode 15. But just quickly, he did touch about playing men's fast pitch softball on a world level at the world tournament, and facing guys throwing in the mid 80s from 46 to 43 feet away, depending on where they jump from. And just to give him some credit, like he went out to that world tournament in Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia, this year and hit 400, which is like
average, right? Batting average,
400, just unbelievable,
nuts,
unbelievable to be facing the best in the world and to hit 100 points higher than maybe like the MLB.
Right. I was gonna say, what's the average of professional batting?
If you
average?
hit 300 in the Major League Baseball, you're a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. So it's just for comparison's sake, really cool. So we'll brag on him for a second. But episode 15, go check it out. Really good stuff. We have a montage clip that we'll put in. But yeah, we'll link all these in the description. So
how quick you can get worked up, but then how quickly can you get your heart rate back down to baseline? If you want to start to dabble into something dangerous and potentially fatal, you need to get serious about it and take the precautions and be well aware. If anybody thinks they're a big tough guy, then they can go out in the woods at night and see how quick that gets scared out of them.
Yeah.
You become the bottom of the food chain. I'm going to come out here and try as hard as I can to be successful, or put all of the knowledge that I've gained into practice, or have the mindset that you're going to fail, because you are, and don't get discouraged by those failures. Learn from them. Same thing as with life. Every failure has a learning opportunity in it. And if you can take that and bank it, then the next time you go and sit in that spot, maybe you'll look at the wind direction before you go. But I've had some life experiences that have brought me fairly close to death. That's caused me to live like right here and right now.
Episode 16 was Elliot Martin. We've known Elliot since I have since I was a kid. You've known him. You were close with him for quite a while, and
teenage,
college too.
College, yeah.
Yep.
And high school,
he went on a roommates. He went on a motorcycle trip from New York to Panama.
Florida?
No.
Oh.
No. Panama. Yeah. And then all the way back up to Alaska, all the way back to New York. Wow. Do you remember how many miles he said it was?
Not specifically, but
he mentioned it. I want to say like 8 to 13, somewhere in that range.
I feel like it was like 15,000.
Okay, 15,000 miles on a
fact
bike.
Check me.
Fact check.
Blows my mind.
And that was in the summer. That was just in the summer.
Yeah, I don't. How you can safely ride a motorcycle that far for, they talked about there were certain days where they would just put in miles because they either needed to catch up or didn't have anything on the agenda that day. So they would just try to go as far as they could. And they would put on 1,000 miles or 800 miles in a day. And that's 10 hours of riding. I mean, that is like some serious willpower, like to stay awake, to mostly just to stay awake. Yeah. And to just, like it's when you're not comfortable on a motorcycle, that becomes a willpower of its own to not just call it quits for the day when you're aching and it's a lot of work. And he talked about the South Dakota winds. So then you're fighting the wind on a motorcycle, which is not a small thing. Like wind on a motorcycle is a very real factor. If there's a 20 mile an hour crosswind that day and you're on the highway, it's going to be a little bit harder to ride your bike that day. So even things like that, to do that for 10 hours and put in 800 miles on the highway, and then to do that for what was it, 4 months, 5 months, they were just riding every day almost.
Yeah, insane.
I can't even comprehend how they pulled that off. That's
what kind of bikes were those?
KLR adventure bikes. Yeah. Yep. So not the most uncomfortable bikes, but they're not cruisers where you're sitting in a recliner. But yeah, again, I cannot, to people who have never ridden a motorcycle, I cannot emphasize how much riding they did every day and how much willpower that takes to staying awake.
Yeah.
Number one, staying awake while you're doing that is it blows my mind how they did that. It's crazy. Yeah. It's a ton of riding.
So he hadn't, I don't know if he had been out of the country before that. I think because he mentioned that it really grew his perspective of the world and realizing that everywhere is not the U.S.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
It was a once in a lifetime trip for sure. And
I believe it.
made my world so much bigger, right? First real time that I've kind of been out of the country, you kind of experience culture shock. You know, realize that not everywhere in the world's like the U.S., right? There's, you know, there was just so much good learning for me in that regard over the whole trip. And really, I think the trip and just kind of meeting with people along the way and just kind of how the Lord worked through that definitely kind of directed me into the like wanting to do something mission-based next. And that's kind of like through Paul Duke in Corpus Christi. He was the one that kind of tipped me on the EMI. I started looking into it as soon as I got back and was kind of like, yeah, this is a really good fit. Like I can use my engineering skills, go overseas and serve and using my engineering for
in Africa. Yeah, just culture shock, seeing different parts of the world. But it's not even like, oh, well, I'm flying into Cancun and I'll be there for a week and I come out. Oh, it's culture shock. No, he was like driving through the towns, staying in people's backyards, and
bribing police officers, breaking, jumping borders.
Road that runs kind of down the whole like strip of like hotels and resorts, right? And it's kind of like a boulevard type of deal where there's like trees in the middle and then like there's like U-turn areas. We ended up entering one that was like a do not enter, but like we didn't know what the sign meant, so like we ended up whipping around when we weren't supposed to. All of a sudden we get, a police officer pulls us over and it's like two guys. They come out, they ask us for our papers and our passports, and right, so we give them all that stuff. So then they're holding like our passports, and they're like, okay, we got to take these. We're going to take these back to the station. You guys got to come in tomorrow and like go, pay the fine or whatever, and then we'll give you your passports back. And we were like, no, we're not giving up our passports, man. We kind of go back and forth with them, like, okay, like, we're really sorry, didn't realize like this was a thing, like not trying to break the law, like, how can we make this right? And so like Isaac actually was, he was kind of like, how can we work this out here?
Yeah, paying a fine in Cancun versus how Guatemala is just kind of like, come on in. Yeah. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. He had a couple of really interesting stories that I wanted to just highlight. One being the immigration story of the family who it's like three families in one family. So it'd be like, like the three brothers.
Yep.
And how
take turns working.
They come to the U.S. They're from Mexico, right? Mexico? El Salvador. I don't know, somewhere down there.
It was further, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, because it was crazy.
Yeah.
Every 7 years, right?
So every 7 years, they would send a different brother to work in the U.S. to send money to support everybody else. Interesting. And I really liked his perspective on immigration as a whole. Understanding where these people are living and how he doesn't blame them. Yeah. Like, he doesn't blame them for wanting to come here. And that's interesting.
That was rough, man. Like, can you imagine? Like, that was
7 years not seeing your family for 7 years. Your
wife
kids,
and children, watching, coming back, and your children are 7 years older, and you missed. You know how much happens in 7 years with a kid? Yeah. Like, they go from
0 to 7.
Like, it's way more than we changed.
Imagine 7 to 14, even.
I'd be a puddle.
Or 10 to 17.
I don't know. They have a different kind of. There's a work ethic and a desire to provide for their families that I don't think any American could relate to. Like, that was like pretty convicting and eye-opening.
Yeah.
The lengths that they're willing to go to provide for their families.
Yeah, and take stock in how blessed we are to be here.
Yeah.
Just
no kidding.
Just for where we were born.
Yep. We're very privileged, that's for sure.
One of the last things I wanted to make a note of, I don't think we actually have a clip of it, but he talked about how they were looking for a place to stay one night and it was dark. And they weren't familiar with the terrain, obviously. And this is like in Colombia or I don't know where they were.
Colombia.
Maybe Nicaragua. And how they were just going along looking for a place to stay. Couldn't find one. Just happened to kind of find a place that they could stay in the backyard of. Well, a mile down the road, there was a huge washout. And they would have just driven right off a cliff. Mm-hmm. They weren't familiar with the area. It was dark. And how dangerous it was. Mm-hmm. And we're talking... I mean, when you start naming off these countries like El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, even stretches of Mexico, like, it's dangerous. He talked about Robbery Road. He talked about like
how they went. They That was the one where they went through it, and people were like, "You did what?"
Yeah, they told them not to. The local police there told them, "Don't go down there."
Yeah,
they did anyway.
You won't make it.
Yeah, you'll probably be robbed at gunpoint. Whatever. Different world. It's a different world. Eye-opening, really cool stories.
Yeah, like
you gotta check that episode out if you want to know.
Pretty nuts.
Anything about adventure motorcycling, like documentary,
stuff. Like the things that they did. Some of the stuff they did was like not all of it was like dangerous or sketchy, but like a lot of it was really cool. Like meeting the fishermen and the relationships that they made along the way. Mm-hmm. That stuff too is like equally as cool. But yeah, like crazy adventure.
I don't know if I would do that. Like you have to have an openness to new situations, I guess, like new adventures. Yep. Because they met a fisherman at like a restaurant who then invited them.
He was like, "Come back to my house
in
this place that
his
you've
private
never been."
Island, kind of where he just happens to live."
Yeah.
And then when they came back through, they went on like a fishing trip with him and stuff. And like those experiences, they'll have forever.
Yeah, pretty cool.
They'll have that forever, and they'll be able to remember that.
Yep.
Let's see. We're at like 25. Why don't we just reset everything? Because I don't want to try to rush. Anyway, Elliot Martin, episode 16. Check it out. I don't want to try to rush through Kurt Heisey's because that's like
gold mine,
pretty much. So why don't we just call it a break right there, replace a couple batteries, and we'll be right back for you, folks. Sound good?
Did they say yes?
We'll be right back. And we're back. Kurt Heisey, yeah. Episode 17 was Kurt Heisey, who is a businessman, entrepreneur, inventor,
and believer.
And pastor. He talked about how he accidentally, started a company that's now a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah. There is a lesson in there. Like when luck and opportunity meet, like that was the downspout machine. Yeah, he like walked by the company's truck and saw this gigantic machine and was like, I can do that better.
Yeah.
And had he never walked by that truck and seen that, maybe that never would have happened. So there's the luck or the blessing, depending on how you look at it. And him seeing that as an opportunity and not just letting the opportunity float away in the wind and actually doing something about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key, isn't it? That's the key.
Yep.
Having the courage to do something about it. Is he says like a good idea will, how much money a good idea will make you?
None.
Nothing. Exactly.
None money.
You have to go out and get after it.
Yeah. Which a lot of stories start that way, right? Like a lot of people that provide solutions to problems that a lot of people didn't know that we had, or invent something. I feel like a lot of them start that way. They saw something and thought, I could do that better, or the other normal,
there's a need for this. It's not out there.
Common one is that they're creating a solution to a problem that no one's solved yet. But more often it's like, you see something and you just have that light bulb. Maybe I could do that better. Or, and that just also is a product of like all of our different human perspectives. We're all different. We all think different. And, some of us would look at the same thing and have different solutions to that same problem. And yeah, he's definitely gifted in that way. And, just where luck and opportunity meet could be, something to look out for. Like be vigilant, like a lot of us just float through life and, not him, like, you got to keep your eyes open and look for opportunity, because sometimes how many times have we walked by opportunity in our life and we'll never even know it. So yeah, like hearing him tell that story, it kind of got me thinking like, man, like you can't just walk around with your head down, like keep your head in a swivel, and you never know what opportunities come your way. Cause that was just total. I mean, he had put himself in that position. He was trying to sell jobs for gutter job, whatever. But still, like, how many of us like float through our jobs and just do the minimum and, whatever, like there's always something. Like keep your head in a swivel. You never know what kind of opportunity is going to come your way. He's a great example of that.
Yep.
Yeah. That was super
the
cool.
overarching theme of that whole episode was courage. Taking courage in your marriage, taking courage to do something new, taking courage to combat evil parts of culture. It's like it's a need, and we're suffering because we need more men of courage to stand up and take control. Women too, women of courage in your marriages, in your career. If you're at home with the kids, like there's plenty of opportunities for everybody to grow in courage. That's for sure. That was a big challenge in that episode.
Yeah, we live in a culture that kind of rewards not stepping out a little bit. It seems to be getting more and more that way. It doesn't take pulling yourself up by your bootstraps to skate by these days. It could be as simple as incentivizing, welfare for groups that maybe don't need it or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that specifically, but we all know that it's a little easier to get by these days. Handouts are not as, they're not as few and far in between as they used to be. And I think that Kurt's point is that our culture has allowed us to settle into a little more of a comfortable position, and we can still somehow survive. Whereas it used to be, you had to step out and do things to get by, and you had to earn your living. And nowadays it's a little easier. We're definitely privileged to live in an easier society, and I'll be the first one to say that. I'm glad I was born when I was. I don't reject that at all. I think it's great that we have the modern amenities and all that, but it has allowed us to settle a little bit. And Kurt wants to see some courage taken. He wants to see people get up and step out and create, invent, teach, go on adventures and do things that are hard. And I love that. I'm all about it.
Yeah. That whole message is what we're all about. Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think too, the docile nature of our culture has led into a lot of sin that's rotting our culture in a lot of ways. Yeah. There's a lot of laziness, a lot of selfishness, a lot of people intellectually being lazy.
We have things handed to us, whether it's through our screens or
I don't think that's what we were created for. No. Right. Yeah. It's a scourge for sure. Yep. Sure. It leads more quickly to internet culture and story for another day. But no, really, really, really good stuff. I liked how he talked about his mistakes in his business, growing his capacity that he could attain something bigger and better.
Learning opportunities.
Because if he failed at that thing, that means his capacity wasn't great enough yet.
I've made so many mistakes, yet every mistake was a learning process that I needed to get to the next level. So I no longer worry so much about whether what I'm doing, whether it's a mistake or not. Because if it's the right thing, then great, I'm on to the next step. If it's the wrong thing, there's a reason why I made the wrong decision, and the consequences of that wrong decision will teach me what I need to learn to get to the next decision, next level. So whether it's a success or a failure, or whether I think it's a success or I think it's a failure, is really not important. The journey is what's important. And it's the growth that's important.
A lot of people don't look at mistakes that way, but a lot of what differentiates, successful people like him in his position from people who, maybe burn out or call it quits a little too early is understanding that the consequences for your mistakes can be huge learning opportunities going forward. And specifically, not just seeing your mistakes as learning opportunities, but the consequences. And that's a huge difference, because the consequences suck. And so you can have the perspective on that as, oh, this sucks, don't like this. Or you can look at it as, yeah, these consequences stink, but I have a fresh perspective on consequences. I'm not going to let this deter me. I'm going to see this as a learning opportunity and to not make the same mistake. It's understanding that there's a difference between mistakes as learning opportunities and their consequences as learning opportunities. It's the consequences that get us down. And it's the consequences that kind of send you into that, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not going to see this as a learning opportunity because consequences stink. But being able to see them as learning opportunities, it's pretty important for his success. Yep. Yeah.
Well, when you, especially, and he highlighted this, is when you face those struggles or you fail, it takes courage to get back up.
Yeah. Right.
And he goes, usually, we'll post the clip, but he's like, courage usually feels to me like fear, like scared. And learning that doesn't have to live by that emotion anymore, and that's not what's going to drive him, really lends itself to courage and personal growth.
Yeah.
Just really good stuff there.
One thing that I've begun to realize is that I'm no longer afraid or worried when I'm scared, because being scared or nervous about something is an emotion. And I don't have to live by my emotion. I just need to do what I'm supposed to do. I've really been thinking a lot, how important courage is. And I think that many times we think that when we're scared, we don't have courage. Courage usually feels scared to me. And so I began to realize, if I'm nervous about something, that's only an emotion, not something that I need to gauge my life by.
I struggle with that a little bit, like that overcoming that fear and being able to step out. He talked about the growing pains of his different businesses and how they were huge. And that, I totally can relate to that. Like, I don't think I've had growing pains as big as he has, but, I'm small time compared to what he's accomplished. But I just mean, like, letting it stop, like knowing, we all know that there are going to be growing pains, and I tend to let that stop me from taking big risk, because I know that with big risk comes potential big failure. And everybody knows that in order to succeed, you are definitely going to go through some amount of failure, that you won't get through to success without some kind of loss. And that terrifies me, because in Kurt's example, we're talking thousands of dollars, like really scary stuff, but having the courage to do it anyway and not let that stop you. I am not there. And that was a good conversation to have, because, like, I don't know, I put it into very, very black and white terms in my mind. If I'm going to go and say, I put myself in Kurt's shoes, if I'm going to go and do what he did, I would have remember when he talked about how he lost the $40,000 because he thought he paid a vendor?
Yeah, this was in like 1989 or something.
And turns out he had been kind of scammed out of the money or whatever. I'd have never done it in the first place.
Packed up.
Yeah, because
I guess I'm done.
I would have maybe, like, many steps before that, I would have thought, well, what if this happens? I can't afford a $40,000 loss. I'll just not do it at all. Like, that's kind of how I think about it in black and white terms. It's like the potential loss of opportunity, of, how many thousands of dollars is this going to put our family out? It's no joke. It really does take a certain level of courage to take the leap and put yourself out there and try something. Yeah. Because, again, Kurt highlighted, like, the consequences or the risk if you don't succeed, it really could add up. And it's not always just dollars and cents, but, sometimes it's people, you can maybe lose relationships. I don't know. Like, what are the other consequences that maybe aren't money? There's tons of them, but, like, they really are great. And I could use a little more courage. That was convicting.
Yeah.
It does take courage, because the losses of the potential failures, they may not be small.
No.
So are you willing to take on that risk? Not if you don't have the courage to step out.
Right. Yeah. So, like, your mental game has to be on point beforehand almost.
Yeah.
Because you can't be doubting.
You're not going to be perfect. You're not gonna run every successful idea through perfectly. That is super scary to me. That is super scary.
Yeah. And interesting to see his perspective as somebody who, because I asked him about growing pains specifically, and he's like, all the time.
Yep. Don't like that.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's like it's set back, 1 step, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, especially when you're a realist or, a rational person who's thinking dollars and cents and consequences and things like that. Yeah, I can understand. He also segued that into how men want respect in their relationships with their spouse.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And his thing was, we get that respect when we act with courage and we do what's right, because that's where it shows the mutual respect from your partner. So
men spell love RESPECT.
How do women spell love?
Love. I don't know. I have no idea if that's true.
No idea. I've been married 8 years. No clue. You got to check that episode out. Episode 17. Really, really eye-opening. And there's a lot to learn there. A lot of good stuff, especially for young men and for young women. So check it out. Episode 17, Kurt Heisey.
You know how much money a good idea will make you? None. You actually have to have the courage to step out and do something. All those really difficult times were great learning situations now that we look back at. 是的，你我说的中文吗? Or would you rather I speak English?
Yeah, English is better.
Okay.
That was cool.
I don't have to live by my emotion. I just need to do what I'm supposed to do. Courage usually feels scared to me. I began to realize, that's only an emotion, not something that I need to gauge my life by. They say that in a marriage, the thing a husband needs the most from his wife is respect. We gain that respect when we act with courage. You want to help your marriage out? Be courageous to do the right thing.
Episode 18.
This was a crazy
Wilbur's
block
Zehr.
of episodes.
Yeah. We had some bangers. Yep.
Yeah, Wilbur was next. Yep.
Wilbur Zehr has worked with the State Department for 20 years, traveling the globe for United States Embassy and the consular services.
Nice. That's a mouthful.
Thank you. I didn't even have that part written down. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, sounds right.
And he equated his position in consular services to like a military lieutenant colonel, which is kind of a big deal. Like that's not an entry level position. Let's just put it that way. That's pretty high up there, and it means he's in charge of a lot of people. First and foremost, he's in Israel right now, in Jerusalem specifically. They were bombed yesterday, 2 days ago. Yesterday.
2 days ago, yeah, maybe yesterday night or something.
By Iran, but they're doing well. So people who are listening might be caring about them. They're doing well there.
Yeah, keep praying because it's still ongoing. But
yeah, and very tumultuous times for the Middle East. Everything's very much on edge. It's a war zone. Yep. So some of the stuff that I really liked that he talked about was his kind of growing up in a rural town, but having this like desire for more, like adventure and going places. And like when you're from around here, it's very easy to just stay here and be comfortable and not do that. So he talked about some kind of pastor coming up, some kind of evangelist coming up and talking about the need for Bibles in China, smuggling Bibles into China. So he did that.
Yeah.
Pretty
Hong Kong, right?
Yeah. And really like he said fulfilled this part of him that he wanted to go out and explore and so fascinating to see how that correlated to his like the work that he does. His 2 to 4 years, he's in a different country, all around the globe. We're talking, China, El Salvador,
Istanbul,
Turkey,
yep.
Even Ottawa, Canada, Mexico. Where was some others? I mean, obviously they're in Jerusalem now.
Right. Tel Aviv.
They've been in Tel Aviv. It felt like that was a long episode. It's like a couple hours, but it felt like we scratched the surface.
Yeah.
We got to have him on again for sure.
Yeah.
But
one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing. I think we all, as Christians, we probably all struggle to understand like what evangelism is supposed to look like. Like the number one calling we all have is to spread the gospel, and I think to some degree, most of us probably understand that may not always look obvious. Sometimes it's how you act. Sometimes your example that you set with your actions and your words, not so much, breaking your Bible out and throwing verses at people, but just how you act and how you conduct yourself in your everyday life. We all know that is often a better example of, Jesus inside of it. And Wilbur is like a great example of that. He's a real professional in his job. How he marries his faith and his profession, like he takes both of them very seriously. And how he's able to marry them is amazing to me because he has to do it in like two really difficult settings, working for the federal government and in other cultures where they're not generally accepting of Christianity, and not always, but like right now he's working in Israel in a very, it's a religious hotbed. And so the way that he's able to, like, the way he described walking into a place after 20 years of learning how to do it, right? But still, like, just hearing how he can bring his faith into the workplace without really bringing his faith into the workplace. That's just the quiet, strategic method that he's able to bring Jesus into his workplace, in government, and like the setting that he's working in, like in places where it's not always welcome. Yeah. And then how he's able to, affect change in people and create camaraderie and teamwork in the workplace. Like, I don't know, like he's just super gifted in that way. I think a lot of us struggle to pull that off, and he seems to have it down pretty well. And so I would listen to that one if you want to learn a little bit about what does it look like to bring Jesus into your everyday life and to show people Jesus. Like, he's really good at that. And like, he's got to be expert level good at it just with his job and where he works. Makes it even harder, and still he does well. Like, it's just amazing to me. Yeah, that's well said. I had notes on the same thing, but you definitely said it better than I did. Smart. Yeah. I think that he was struggling a bit. I mean, throughout his life, I think it's been hard for him to not be here. It seems like he knows that he's called to do this. He knows that he enjoys it even, but it's hard to miss out on the family community of where he grew up and seeing everybody here. He talked about the story of Esther, about being put in a place for a time such as this, which I think is exactly where he is right now. Like he said, sometimes it's not that way, and sometimes it's just you're there, kind of. But when you understand the workings of what he does in government and what he does for the consulate, what he does for the embassy, there's no doubt in my mind for where he is right now in Israel that he is placed there for a time such as this. It's not a coincidence. Like this kind of stuff happens for a reason. And it's kind of fun to see that.
Every country we go to, for those of you that are Bible readers, the story of Esther that talks about for Esther that Mordecai tells her, maybe you were placed here just for such a time as this, right? For this specific reason. And Cheeky and I have always thought about that. We've gone to why this country? There must be something for such a time as this. Often there's not. And it's just day to day living out godly principles, being salt and light in places that don't have a lot of salt or light, and just living that out day to day. But when you do have something that's kind of extraordinary, you're like, wow, this is perfect. This is where I want to be right at this time and in this place. So, yeah.
Yep. When you say that, I can't help but think that in the Mordecai to Esther in a Boston accent? Because I just can't not think of the VeggieTales.
VeggieTales, got you. He is also a wealth of knowledge in marriage and parenting, for sure. But he's also a state champion runner.
Cross-country runner, yeah.
Cross-country runner. Yep. 2 times?
Something like that.
Yeah, 2 times.
It's hard, Beaver River, shout out. It's got so many. It's just hard to remember.
Well, they kind of started
it
sounds like they kind of started the legacy there. Yep. Just going into his running career, he's run a lot of marathons and stuff, but I loved the story of the marathon, the Marine Corps marathon, when he
skipped to the end or something. Yeah. Worst feeling.
We'll clip it for sure.
Yeah. Marine Corps marathon, we're going to run it. Well, I got hurt in my knee and wasn't in great shape, and so I told him, I'm not going to be able to finish this. That race, the 16-mile mark, is just a pretty short walk over to the finish. So I said, I'll run with you for 16 miles. The last 10 are on you. We met our families there, and then we walked over to the finish. So we're just waiting for him to finish. We don't see him finish. Well, we can't go and get where all the runners are, except I still got my number on. I just hop back in the race and run through the finish just to go find Rob, right? I skipped 10 miles. It wasn't like I was going to win or anything. But here's the thing. It's the Marine Corps Marathon. They have United States Marines who are giving their lives for our protection. They're putting medals on all the runners. And I crossed, and this guy's putting a medal. I said, no. I said, I didn't finish. everybody's a finisher. He was like, I just felt, what's the term they use for people that pretend
like an
to?
imposter syndrome?
Stolen valor.
Stolen valor.
Total stolen valor. I just felt horrible.
That's funny.
Oh my word, man! He's like, everybody's a finisher.
No, you literally don't understand.
No, you don't understand. I did not run the whole thing. He goes, no, I didn't finish. He goes, everybody's a finisher.
God bless America.
Dude,
God bless
something
you.
else that people don't, they don't understand, might not have gotten from, I mean, I think they will from that episode, but Wilbur has such a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
Oh, just fantastic.
Great.
Absolutely phenomenal.
He's a man.
But, yeah, check out that one. It's episode 18. And that was just a joy to have him.
You got
and,
him. Yeah, that's a must listen.
It's a must listen. Yep. A lot of good stuff in there. Episode 19. We'll do this one, then we'll wrap that up. Sound good? And then we'll come back for like 10 minutes to talk about Chris's stuff for 21. 20 and 21. Episode 19 was Sheriff Mike Carpanelli. He's local sheriff around here. He's been elected 4 terms.
Something like that.
I think it was. Also made a governor run. Governorship run. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Ran for governor.
Anyway.
Word salad much?
I was raised in a middle-class family, okay?
Sounds like we're trying to write a college essay here.
Yeah. That was a really great episode. I mean, just his perspective on law enforcement in general. He's got a career in urban law enforcement and rural now as the sheriff for 4 terms. I think they're 4 years. 16 years he's been sheriff, maybe. Yeah. And he did like 20 years before that, so in Rochester.
Yep. And just a really, really nice man. Like, nice guy.
Yeah. It's
somebody
refreshing
you
to
want
see
in
that.
position, I would think. Yeah. Somebody you want in that position who not only are they just super nice and talk to anybody on the street, polite, well-mannered, things you don't often, you don't see as much these days, willing to put himself out there and present himself well in the public and just treat people with respect and kindness and yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But also takes his job extremely seriously and just the perfect mix of what you would want, I would think, in a guy in his position.
Yeah, he takes his morals and his convictions seriously, and won't be pushed around by bureaucracy. I thought that was kind of one of my key takeaways.
Yeah, very steadfast in that way.
A constitutionalist.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do when
you're in
that position.
The good thing about being an elected representative versus an appointed position is that you have, I don't want to say freedom, because you should have the freedom no matter what, but certainly the flexibility to show your own convictions in responsibility. Exactly. So he had talked about the pandemic regulations and how that came down and why they weren't enforcing a lot of the business closures and the party closures and these different things, and how it came back to the Constitution for him.
Yeah. And listen, if you don't agree, I'll just leave you with this. Would you rather a government be more hands-on or more hands-off? That's where I land on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when in doubt, is it the government's job to step in and enforce, or is it the government's job to allow freedom to be the decision maker? So I don't know. That's kind of where I come out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And one of the big things that I really like about that episode and his perspective is that it's very commonsensical. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agree or disagree. I think that you can look at that episode and say that he's looking at it with a level head, and he doesn't want to be jamming people up for nonsense, or he has a very level-headed approach to most things.
Yeah.
Kind of understanding that you're dealing with human beings and not constituents or the public, because a lot of times you'll see people who have the mindset that they're above somebody else and have authority over those people. And technically, yes, law enforcement does have that ability, but your attitude doesn't have to be that I'm here to enforce the law and point at your badge, and I'm
right.
I'm
Understanding the code of ethics that is at play too, for sure.
Yeah, treating people with respect. That's what he said. Knowing where you came from, knowing who you are.
Here's what I say: we are not only here to enforce the rules and the laws and do the best we can to keep order in society, but you're also an ambassador for the people. You're hoping that if you treat people the way you do, so will the rest of them that see that forward. Your neighbor will do the same thing. That's for me anyhow that I hope. And I remember even being a city cop. We're down in the ghettos. We know what that's like. And you're a white cop, and let's say you're down in a complete Hispanic area or a Haitian area. If you showed respect, that's the biggest thing. Show respect to them, whether you get it back, whether you get it or not. Listen, we're wearing the uniform that's representing everybody from that city, town.
Really good stuff. Some of the challenges with modern policing, the reality of the job. It's a dangerous job. We touched on mental health, compartmentalizing a little bit, as well as physical
he's very
requirements
open about that.
and training.
Good listen.
Yeah, I think that you have to be.
Yeah, and
especially as a leader of a whole agency.
Yeah, and it's he's a man's man. He's a good guy. Like a lot of guys in that position don't want to talk about it. He's a tough man. Got in his position, for him to be able to talk about that kind of stuff is. I think hugely beneficial. And I bet his guys appreciate that too, because it shows he cares.
Yeah.
And that stuff we know that stuff, like in, the military, we know that mental issues and struggles like that are rampant. And I don't think we talk about it a lot in the policing world, but it's there too. And yeah, I bet his guys appreciate that.
I think when you said, they have to learn to shut it off, and unfortunately, you never really shut it off. There's a term used in police psychology called compartmentalizing, right? You put it over here, back here a ways, and you lock it away. It's all good and well until something sets it off, which you now know is called PTSD, right? If somebody told me that I had PTSD, I'd tell them right away, I don't, you understand? No, I don't. And, and then the professional's going to say, well, how about this incident there? Yeah, what about it? And they say, there, you just showed it. You didn't want to talk about it. So what about it? You put it back on us instead of opening up and saying it, And then you got to go, okay, touche, you're right, but I'm not going to admit that I have it.
It's very, very down to earth, very relatable, able to associate with a lot of his ideas just on common level. His governorship run, he got a lot of traction with that and got a lot of interest from other politicians to join their cabinets, and he just couldn't do that. Couldn't shake people's hands for their support and then kind of drop them for a big position. That's an integrity move.
Yeah.
I asked him if the public understands policing, and I thought he gave a really good answer to that. He's like, surface level, no, not really. It's very hard to know that. Relate to the people in that job unless you're in that job. Or married to somebody who is, maybe even. But it's a difficult job, stressful job. I really like that his approach during the uprisings and during a lot of the rhetoric around policing was to have his guys back and control morale the best he could. Because it seems to me that a lot of the agencies that did not do that and kind of gave in to some of that nonsense really suffered by losing good cops. People didn't want to be around there, or the morale took such a devastating blow that it was hard to recover from. Because that was the first thing he said, it's the morale of my guys.
Yeah.
I need them strong. I need them fit. I need them mentally prepared. All the things you want to hear from a leader.
Yep. Different perspectives that somebody not gifted in that area would not think, And yeah, like you said, you saw in a lot of police departments didn't have that approach leadership-wise and didn't go so well.
I'm more blessed in this area with the crew that I have than I think I would have been in a city atmosphere, that's for sure. As a sheriff, and I know that there'll be some people out there that at times will think, well, there's Carpanelli again doing what he wants to do, I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm going to do what's the right thing and what's going to keep the police work on a professional manner, keep their like I say, the morale up, and still want to go out and do the job. The political atmosphere that started a few years ago has ruined a lot of good officers.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, great leader. Great leader. Sure. And might be why he's elected 4 times. He's not running again, he told us.
Bombshell announcement.
This is it. Big announcement on the ESP podcast. ESP podcast. Easier said podcast.
Maybe some other interests in the future, but yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We'll see. We'll have him on again, I'm sure, down the road.
Yeah.
Sometime. Okay, well, let's just reset. Really good episode anyways. You got to check that out. Episode 19. Really fun. Really easy to listen to. I found that one to kind of flow really nicely.
Yeah, and just interesting if you want the inside perspective from, the horse's mouth. Like, yeah, great, super interesting topics, and right from, the experts.
Yep. So, all right, let's just reset. We're going to do one last quick segment just to talk about episodes 20 and 21, which was Chris Mancino's testimony. What a wild ride. What a wild story that was. So we'll get into that right on the other side of this break. All right. And we're back.
Rounding out this block of episodes, Chris Mancino.
Yep.
He was our first part twoer.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
That's definitely what we call that.
Yeah, he has a long story, so we cut it into 2 parts so we could leave it on a cliffhanger and you'd come back and get extra listens.
Actually, what happened was we had the first episode of 2 hours and didn't get even half of what we wanted to get in because there was so much there.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah, Chris is a really nice guy from Long Island, and he ended up in Lewis County through a series of events. And how do you recap that?
Boy, okay, so here we go. Here's just an overview of his story. We'll throw some clips in, too. So Sheriff Carpanelli's from episode 19 and episode 2021. The clips aren't out yet because they lag a little bit. So I don't know how many of those we'll be able to put in there. But Chris Mancino's like, I just have a note of kind of the overview. And basically it starts with like family tragedy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was alluded to addiction. I'm assuming there was some of that with his mom, who took her own life when he was entering 9th grade. Some unrealized underlying trauma there that wasn't dealt with, that actually kind of came to fruition later on. Then he went to college and had a great first year, got in touch with a fraternity. Everything spiraled out of there. Probably had something to do with his past trauma and his proclivities to certain things. Got into heavy addiction. And then ended up dropping out of college, losing his job. He was homeless in San Francisco for a week.
Life got out of control. Yep.
Spiraled. Yep. Rock bottom. He talks about a felony arrest that he had, the plea deal that he took, the road then to recovery through Huntersfield. Is that Christian Training Center, something like that?
Huntersfield Christian Training Men's Training.
What an amazing journey just to that point. So then,
great example of a successful recovery, like it's possible.
Yeah, I meant to mention that too because like he would be because a lot of times people are like, oh, rehab doesn't work. Right. He would be one person that's like. It
changed his life.
Changed his life.
And anybody who's met Chris, like he's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Like he's such a
listening
nice
to
guy.
his story, I was like,
you're making this up.
Yeah, none of this happened.
Yeah, he's like super nice. He's a really really good guy, and a great example of, don't
restoration.
Give up. Yeah, it's possible. Yep.
So then, the better part of that was he, got clean, moved up this area. Was recovered for a couple of years, 4 years actually. So he stays up here for 2 years, was recovered there and stayed at Huntersville for 2 years.
Yep. By choice, yeah.
Got married up here, and like 8 months after being married, cancer.
Diagnosed with leukemia.
Yep. Acute.
Lymphoblastic.
That's
leukemia.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, which is very serious in adults and has like a 30 to 40% survival rate.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, how old is he? He's going to be 30.
29, 30, yeah.
30?
It's my age,
okay.
yeah. Yep.
Going through all that in your first 30 years. Amazing. amazing. Like it almost seems like he's had a whole lifetime and just
yeah,
a lot of ups and downs.
Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it? Like his ability to bear all of that and keep the faith through the entire process. I mean, how easy would it be to let that break you? But that is a testament to the Lord getting control of his life and him allowing that to happen, because nothing could get you through that but the Lord.
Yep. And
insane.
And also he, in that earlier part when he was, dealing with the addiction, dropping out of school, losing his job, being homeless, he was diagnosed with bipolar depression, so mental health issues, substance abuse. It just unbelievable. And then to see him come full circle to recovery and then be hit with a second punch.
Right. Yeah.
Just amazing. In remission now with his cancer, I think, for the most part, but it's kind of like a 5-year window.
Yep.
You just got to kind of keep a close eye on it. Yep. An amazing testimony. This is a 2-part episode series, episode 20 and 21 with Chris. I think that you get a look into how difficult some people's lives are, and that it takes some serious perspective for you to understand that this is not uncommon, especially in certain circles. Go to California, go to New York City, go to anywhere, and you'll find people homeless with addiction, having problems. Even smaller cities and even rural areas, it's a huge, huge problem. And I think we're so insulated from that. Like we just don't really...
We think we have our own problems, but really maybe you should be not focusing on your own problems and start praying for people who actually have problems. It's a little bit of perspective listening to that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real problems.
Don't want to get out of bed this morning. Don't want to... Yeah. I mean, like...
Most of this stuff is fixable in our lives.
They're just not real.
And they're not real problems. I mean, they're problems, maybe, surface level,
Normal everyday challenges. You're not special.
Yep. And the more that you can expose yourself to people who have stories of this magnitude of destruction and just chaos or things that he couldn't control, right? So like cancer, like there's so many things, and that is an area, especially you want to talk about a real problem, cancer. I mean, how many people does that take? Where is that on the death list? And the millions of just Americans who are dealing with that stuff.
Yeah. It's a big, scary monster in the closet.
Yep.
Often don't know where it comes from, don't know how to fix it.
His perspective, Chris's perspective on the whole thing just is so challenging and encouraging to me. This is a guy who finally got his life back. Finally. He was at rock bottom, at the depths of despair, gets his life back. Things are looking good. Gets married, happy about that. And then just gets side swiped right there.
Yeah.
Completely blindsided by cancer.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about that in the part 2 episode. So yeah, if you want encouragement in that area, that'd be the one to listen to, part 1 and part 2. You need the whole story. But yeah, if you want some perspective on your life and how things are going for you, and maybe a little bit of course correction on your mindset, you won't want to miss out on those. Yeah, Chris will set you straight. That's not his intention, but it definitely gets you thinking. Yeah, it gets you thinking perspective-wise. Yeah. Just sitting here talking about it, I'm like reminded, like, man, I need to complain a lot less. If anything you take away from that,
gratitude,
thankfulness. Yep.
Yeah. And that rounds it out. So that's through episode 21. This will be episode 22. We have some guests lined up that we're excited about that are coming up.
Yeah.
But just what a block this was.
Yeah. Just hard to top that one.
I know.
Like really setting ourselves up for failure here. Now we'll have to keep pushing for better and better.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and we thank all the guests for the time. Thank you to the listeners too. Thank you to all of you for your support. It's been been a journey. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And honestly, I'm learning more than anybody else. I've said it a whole bunch of times. I honestly think that. Yeah, this one will come out on Monday I don't know, whatever the date for Monday is.
5th.
Monday the 5th?
6th.
7th?
Something like that.
I don't know. It's the 3rd today.
Nice.
Good segue. Anyways, appreciate you all listening. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, look forward to the next 9 episodes, technically.
Yeah, before the next recap.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so be in tune to YouTube and anywhere you can listen to podcasts. We're also on Facebook and Instagram for now.
All right.
So, all right. Thanks, folks. Appreciate your time. Catch you on the next one.
Peace.